Ladies and gentlemen, as we just have heard from Ikwan Rosli from BP, global fleet managers expect technology to be at their service. The challenge for corporate fleet managers in 2021 is to push connected technology across the finish line and implement new solutions that will benefit employee safety, asset utilization, and ultimately cost control. The good news is that never in history technology has been as accessible as it is today. According to Statista, worldwide sales of connected cars with embedded telematics were estimated to have hit 28 million units in 2019. This figure will only increase to 76 million units by 2023. Indeed, a very flourishing market. Welcome to the expert panel discussion, The Best Fleet is a Connected Fleet. To unravel how you can unlock the benefits of connectivity for your global fleet management, let's welcome Fabian Seitel, Associate Vice President, NCEE Sales and Business Development at Geotab, Jerry Lee, Global Marketing Director at StreamX, Ovidio Radu, Chief Technology Information Officer at OvDrive, and Andrea Amico, Founder and CEO of Privacy for Cars. Gentlemen, welcome. Welcome, it's great you are joining our conference. For the first round, we will keep it simple. You all have 1 minute to detail your company and your business. And we are going to start with Fabian Seitel of Geotab. Fabian, introduce us, what is Geotab about?
Hey, thanks, Stephen, for having us. Geotab is really a connected car platform connecting more than 2 million vehicles globally, and by doing so, helping fleets to increase their efficiency, improve sustainability, and take the best out of a connected fleet.
Okay, thank you very much. Jerry, can you tell us a little bit about StreamX?
Sure, thank you for the introduction, Stephen. So StreamX is a company focusing on using video to improve the safety management of the fleet. And right now we have roughly 2 million vehicles all around the world protected by our devices and our machine vision technology.
Ovidio, I would like to continue with you and OvDrive. Can you introduce your company?
Thank you, Stephen. We call ourselves a fleet and mobility operating system. So essentially, we are a platform that centralizes all of these connected car and connected driver, connected supplier data points into one central solution where you can visualize your assets, manage cost, budgets, suppliers, vendors, etc., to optimize your fleet.
Okay. And finally, Andrea, Privacy for Cars, for the people that don't know your company, what is it about?
Yes, we're the first and only technology company focused on solving the data privacy issues that connected vehicles pose.
Okay. Fabian, would like to start with you. We are talking about connectivity, we are talking about technology. Fleet managers are expecting a lot from connected technology and fleet management. Can you detail the tangible results and the tangible benefits of a connected fleet?
Yeah, sure, Stephen. So, Geotab's claim to fame is management by measurement. And that being said, we think in 6 strategic pillars, being productivity, fleet optimization, driver safety, sustainability, compliance, and expandability. And looking at the tangible benefits of a fleet, we think it's really a combination of these segments, and what it ultimately targets is an increase in efficiency, cutting cost, and or improve the ecological footprint. We think that's what it's about and where the tangible benefits derive.
Okay, Ovidio, would like to continue with you. Where for you is the biggest win? Is it safety? Is it productivity and efficiency? Is it electrification? Is it new mobility? What is it?
If I was to pick I guess out of that list would probably be safety and productivity.
Okay.
Definitely, productivity would be kind of like a shining star out of those four. Usually, key area we see immediate benefit is cost saving and productivity. Usually, when that's applied. If I would have actually said all four, if I wasn't a firm believer that electrification and new mobility are actually industry movements, they will have a major impact regardless of what the next steps are.
Mm-hmm. Jerry, I can assume that for you it's safety. We also often see that when fleets are going to include technology, then first they start with paying attention to safety. Do you have the impression that on a global level, fleet managers are already well aware about the benefits of connected technology linked to safety?
Oh, I think absolutely is. So from our experience in various market statistics, we see that the video telematic market is booming all around the world, especially I would say the leading region will be North America. And then we see the overall market to have at least 25% compound interest growth rate per year for the next 5 years. And then I would say from our previous polls on various fleet managers, over 50% of them are actually considering implementing videos into their existing operations to help them get better visibility and control over the risk.
Andrea, let's continue with you. Fleet managers and working councils still have some privacy concerns when talking about connectivity and connected technology. Is this, in your opinion, a valid concern? And don't you fear any function creep that can happen?
Well, we share the same concerns. We're very much focused on legal compliance, but also operational compliance, right? Safety and security and privacy are very interlinked nowadays with connected vehicles. And I think that fleet managers should be really thoughtful about the data that the vehicle collects, but also the data is collected from drivers by bringing their own devices, like their phones. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done in this area.
Mm-hmm. I see Ovidio nodding yes. What is your opinion about that privacy concern, data privacy concern, knowing that if we are going to fleet electrification, if we are going to smart mobility management, if we are talking about integrated global fleet management, probably connected technology will only become more important in the future, as we also have seen with the statistics.
100%. Yeah, I think there's no way of avoiding massive streams of information, being again communicated across from vehicles, from drivers, from all sorts of different solutions that allow connectivity. And I think ultimately connectivity and data collection are there to really help fleet managers with decision making, with automation of workflows, etc. And ultimately, when it comes to privacy, I think that can be managed if a lot more work is put in this area, exactly like Andrea was also mentioning. So, but I think also when it comes to this whole privacy concern, maybe a good idea to also think about a missing component before we get to the concern is there's very little communication to staff, to your colleagues, essentially, if we were speaking to fleet managers now. And it would be a good idea to start connecting your drivers from that perspective, start opening lines of communication to actually communicate what the North Star is behind your safety and sustainability and cost savings initiatives you're essentially introducing. Because I think data collection in fleet management is less about Big Brother and more about collating information in one place to allow for better safety and initiatives overall.
Okay, well, trying to expand the communication about connected technology, also data privacy, is of course what we are trying to do here at the Global Fleet Conference and with this session. Fabian, if I am a fleet manager and I would like to start with a connected fleet, how and where to start?
Yeah, Stephen, that's a really good question, and I would really recommend not to start in a, let's say, jack of all trades style. So a vehicle today can really generate a lot of data, and it can be quickly overwhelming. So I would really recommend take the 3 to 4 areas where you would see for your fleet the biggest room for improvement, and looking at these first. And yeah, can be things in the productivity segment, in the sustainability segment, on the driver behavior, whatever, let's say, is top of your priority. And then so I would start tackling these points in the beginning, and then gradually you can look at other things. But let's say starting with everything in the beginning might add a total layer of complexity. And as well, looking, let's say, at the global fleet conference, I wouldn't recommend starting in all your countries at one step if you're a global fleet, but pick countries where to start, and then that can be really deployed across multiple countries afterwards.
Okay.
Jerry, where you want to start?
Yes. Jerry, to continue with you, Fabian was already mentioning not to go into the connected fleet and try to do everything at once, but if you need to choose countries or regions, can you a little bit elaborate what, in your opinion, do you need to do as a fleet manager? Do you start with those countries where perhaps legislation or acceptance is already big and it's easy to implement? Or do you just look at where you need connected technology and do you start there? What is your opinion?
I would, because we're in safety management, so I would definitely go in and look at the operational data. Where do we have the most accidents, and what type of accidents are they? For example, are we driving our trucks in populated areas, so we might need to add blind spot detections to protect vulnerable road users? Or are we doing long haul trucking that we need to maybe better monitor and protect our drivers from driving fatigue? So I think we have to look at the actual data to provide the first step, and then we should go straight to the problem and to get the best ROI out of the investment.
Okay. Ovidio, what are the KPIs, the key performance indicators that need to be considered when you are a global fleet manager and you are trying to setting up a connected fleet, you are going into the market to buy connected technology? What are the KPIs?
I guess I'm going to answer that question a little bit from a technical angle, but without obviously considering the normal KPIs, I assume fleet managers are normally looking for in tools orientated towards operations, let's say. I would say definitely keep in mind data security, privacy, and ownership KPIs. So ensure that ultimately your company retains ownership of its own data. Privacy is well protected there, and security layers are well implemented within those tools to protect your data.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Fabian, can you elaborate a little bit on the KPIs that Ovidio already just mentioned? Are there others that you would like to underline that are important?
Yeah, so first, I agree with Ovidio. So the data privacy, data security pieces are obviously critically important. Let's say looking from a fleet perspective, and ties well to my previous answer. It's on the cost reduction, is on the improving of the driver behavior. It's cutting CO2 emissions, and so it's in these segments that fleets typically look at. And in the end, it's about these areas: cutting cost, improving driver behavior, and improving the ecological footprints that are typically the foremost KPIs.
Andrea, in Europe and North America, there are already data privacy rules in place. What do they exactly contribute to the safety of data and also to fleet management? And how to deal with privacy in other regions, for example, in Africa, Middle East, or in APAC, or in more remote regions?
Yes, reality is that the more time passes, the more privacy laws are passed. There's a Gartner study that says today about 15% of the world population has strong laws that protect their privacy. By 2023, it will be 60%. So whether you have started a program to start to look into the privacy protections of the data that cars collect or not, it will be a big to do in the next year or two, no matter where you live. And in fact, just recently, just this year, we had legislation passing in Ghana, in Brazil, in New Zealand, in Australia. I mean, it's a long, long list, and it becomes longer and longer. So no matter where your fleet operates, probably you should look into it. And in fact, when we talk to fleet managers, there's 3 phases they go through. The first one is just learning, right? Most people still don't think about a car as a device that is a connected device that collects personal information, not only through the cars, again, also through the activity of the users, including bringing their own devices. Number 2 is prioritizing what you do. And typically they start with compliance, right? So talk to your legal team to try to understand what you need to do. And then there's the third, and I think the most exciting phase for fleet managers, which is how do we turn this into services? How can peace of mind be a value add? How can data protection be something that we can actually sell to our fleets? And we start to see some fleet management companies being very successful with that.
Jerry, global fleet managers would like, of course, to harmonize as much as possible. They would also like to streamline processes. What with the compatibility of technology, as global fleet managers ask for integrated reporting, integrated solutions. And I can imagine that if you are managing a global fleet, you have vehicles in Europe, in APAC and in Latin America, that perhaps you are working with different suppliers. So what can we expect on integrated reporting? What is your vision about that?
So I think for all of the successful video telematic offerings in the market, they are very open. I think they either do have an app marketplace so that it allows third-party developers to put their applications into their marketplace, or they will have an API that allows for data to be called from this very application into overall, either that could be a company ERP or their data visualization dashboard. So I think being able to open up to allow the fleet management companies all around the world to have a single and unified dashboard is definitely the future. And I think it is not whether that's going to happen. It's just when it's going to happen for this type of solutions.
And when do you think that it could happen?
I would say for the market leaders, this is already available. Everything is connected.
Okay. Fabian, would like to continue with you. We know, of course, that in the past, for sure, car manufacturers, but also leasing companies were not, let's say, always so open to share all the data of the usage of their vehicles and so on. How do you see that evolution for the sake of global fleet management efficiency?
Yeah, we follow that that actually progressing. So more and more vehicles coming out of the factory from the OEM are already connected, and vehicle manufacturers are increasing their connectivity programs. As Geotab, we have announced programs with Mercedes, Ford, and GM and others coming. So it's definitely progressing a lot. And well, it's whenever there's already a SIM card built inside, there's many advantages. Frankly speaking, some data that fleet managers would require today, in particular on the driver behavior, driver safety side, are not always covered, but we do see the OEM programs improving a lot, and that is from a process perspective and from an efficiency perspective to the benefit of every player in the connected fleet industry, and benefits the fleet customer a lot.
Okay, great. Something else that can perhaps benefit the fleet customer in the future is the evolution in artificial intelligence and machine learning. What can we expect in that area, according to you, Andrea?
Well, so I was recently interviewed for the case of a very famous golfer, Tiger Woods, who got into an accident a couple of months ago. And he was driving a brand new vehicle, which happens to have an infrared camera pointed at the face of the driver all the time, and that determines if you're distracted or not. What is interesting here is that you may have an AI that is making a determination for really excellent safety reasons, right? They want to tell you, hey, pay attention to the road because you're not looking. All of that is awesome. If you get into an accident, just be aware that your vehicle may become the witness in the case. And actually, in the United States, for instance, since the vehicle was not owned by Tiger Woods, it was owned by a fleet. The fleet actually gets to decide whether this data is admitted to court or not. And so if you're a fleet manager, just be aware that you may be the person having to decide whether you bring certain data to court or not, regardless of the will and the desire of the person whose legal stance is at jeopardy. So these are some of the interesting things that people typically don't think about when they talk about AI in vehicles. Again, there's a lot of great things that AI can deliver for safety and convenience. They typically also tend to come with a dark side that people don't like to talk about, but we really should, because if you manage it, you can bring all those values to front and reduce the risk and liabilities related with the dark side. If you don't talk about it, you're completely blindsided, which is unfortunately where we see the vast majority of the industry being in right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that comment. Ovidio, let's have it about the bright side. What for you can the future of machine learning and artificial intelligence bring for the sake and the benefit of the global fleet manager?
Definitely we see, at least from our experience, we deploy AI quite a lot, as much as we can in workflow automation. So we see really having access to vast amounts of data when it comes to vehicle management, really benefiting the training of artificial intelligence when it comes to repetitive tasks. So we see AI being deployed in this industry and being a little bit of like a sidekick or a junior fleet manager, but one that doesn't really call in sick, and one that helps actually with the repetitive tasks within the business. We see the role of the fleet manager really evolving a little bit into diversifying the types of decisions they have to make, but also intensifying in frequency. So definitely this technology will be good at invoice control, for example, cost control. But as the role evolves and fleet managers are actually called upon with their experience to put their touch on new responsibilities, new areas of the business that they're needed in, we really see the technology really beginning to help out with safety profile suggestions, contract renegotiations, in some cases, procurement as well. So we definitely, again, with these repetitive tasks that are happening, at least in our experience, we're trying to bring automation into workflows as much as possible using this technology.
Okay. Fabian, do you think that fleet managers in the future need to become tech wizards?
Well, I wouldn't say tech wizards, but obviously the role of the fleet manager is under constant change, and accurate data is becoming more and more important. So you don't need to be a wizard, but you need to be affine to data and technology as technology emerges. So it's less the people that like to do the mechanics at the car, but is rather the people that know what an API is. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that being said, complexity and requirements in the job of the fleet manager, I would interpret to change, but I as well would see that it brings a lot of improvement to the role of the fleet manager, as previously outlined. So having your digital assistants and your tools and technology to support you in the job. And let's say data-driven decisions are always the best to take.
Jerry, will it change the role of the fleet management and the leasing company, AI and machine learning?
I wouldn't say change the role. I would say our job is to make their job much easier. Traditionally, there's a lot of burden on identifying, different risk in the operations. But now AI is able to cherry pick the most critical events so that they could just see the 10-second, 5-second videos and the statistics to make a more informed decision. We also do see that in a lot of fleets in China, they added a new position for, let's say, chief technology officer, and they hire people from the tech industry to handle all of the new tools and identifying what kind of a management systems can be put in place by utilizing all of the new technologies. So I do see the change in the fleet management side by adding, let's say, a tech wizard in this case.
Andrea, we are going in some regions a little bit more fast than in others, from vehicle fleet management to mobility management. When we talk about mobility management, we also talk about, for example, shared mobility. I can imagine that there, the exchange of data and the safety of data will become even more important than when you own one asset. Is that correct? How do you see that?
Yeah, I think that people can easily relate to that, right? Usually your IT department will frown upon people sharing a laptop at the office. People will frown upon, sharing a smartphone. Cars are not really any different, right? Once you start to intermingle physical exchanges of vehicles with multiple people participating, it really raises the stakes. And there are things that fleet managers should be thinking about. In fact, for instance, the European Communion just gave guidance on how to apply GDPR and e-privacy. They specifically talk about car sharing. They're not saying it's not okay. They're saying car sharing requires extra hygiene. Just, wash your hands. The equivalent of washing your hands is delete the data of the person before and make sure you delete it before you leave it, right? This is just like what I teach my kids, right? When you go camping, leave the campsite cleaner than when you got in there. We should do exactly the same thing with vehicles.
Ovidio, what is the easiest region to implement telematics and connected technology in?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think it's very much depends on the privacy laws, works councils, etc. Or the confinements, I guess, of how that technology can be deployed. If I was to pick a region, like the easiest for us, at least, that we've seen our customers deploy this sort of solution in, has definitely been Australia compared to Europe. Europe definitely has a lot more complexity when it comes to the different countries and the different levels of decision making, I guess, before that technology can be deployed. I'm not sure if the other guys are operating in this region of the world, but connecting vehicles over here is a hobby. We love it.
Okay. Jerry, what is the typical ROI that can be generated through connectivity and safety?
I would say it's actually pretty good. All you need is one major accident prevention, and then it pays for the entire deployment of the whole fleet. And other things that we are trying to improve the ROIs is to create partnerships with insurance and reinsurance providers. The reason behind that is they are suffering major loss all around the world. And then our solution, our data shows that we could reduce 30 to 45% of the accidents rate, so that they will have a profitable premium in that policy. So they're willing to subsidize the initial investment, which makes the ROI calculation much easier.
Fabian, Geotap is also busy with connected technology and fleet electrification. Fleet electrification is seeing an emergence across different regions. What is for you the USP of connected technology for fleet electrification?
Yeah, Stephen, really good question. And really, it's two things looking at fleet electrification where the connected car can truly help. One being the assessment which part of the fleet can be electrified. Because we often see that electrification is a bit of an emotional task, while we think it can be data driven. So doing a calculation, looking at the usage pattern, and then really defining which part of the fleet can be electrified. And then once a fleet is electrified, we think telematics must be a must-have commodity. So looking at plug-in hybrids that are never being charged, or think about a service fleet where a technician comes to work, the vehicle is not being fueled. A fossil engine vehicle is 10 minutes of a delay, versus an EV that is not being charged is a 3-hour delay, depending on the case. So we really think connected car is a must looking at electrification.
Gentlemen, we have to close this panel discussion. Thank you very much for your insights. Thank you, Andrea, Jerry, Ovidio, and Fabian. Thank you for your presence and your commitment.